What's going on, guys? My name is Matt Omega, and... Wait, didn't I just play this? Ratchet & Clank, the first outing of an unemployed one-wing mechanic turned galactic hero in his robot backpack. That marked the debut of one of PlayStation's biggest and best franchises. And what's not to love? You got a cool fairy-eared hero, an equally cool robot sidekick, space, lots of guns, and most importantly, the ability to glide. Sounds like a winning combo to me. Like its successors, our debut adventure has us hopping around the galaxy and cleaning it up by way of taking an arsenal of crazy awesome firearms and unloading them into anything that moves. But for today's challenge, it would seem our friend Ratchet here took the idea of cleaning up the galaxy a little too seriously. That or he got hooked on Luigi's Mansion, which is understandable. The Suck Cannon. A fun weapon with the unique gimmick of sucking up small enemies like a vacuum and spitting them back out as powerful projectiles. It's a pretty strong weapon with an interesting premise and limit for its ammo, and despite not being as versatile as it will become in the third game, where it can suck up crates too, it can get the job done. Or can it? Is this weapon an effective first line of defense that can take on any task, or does its gimmick leave it situational at best? I guess what I'm trying to say is, can we beat Ratchet & Clank with only the Suck Cannon? The rules are simple. The only weapon in Ratchet's arsenal we're allowed to use is the Suck Cannon, and only the Suck Cannon in its base form, meaning no golden Suck Cannon allowed. The wrench will only be allowed to turn bolt cranks and nothing else. No breaking boxes, no attacking enemies, nothing. Nada. That's it. You lose. Good day, sir. Turrets and vehicles are also legal when deemed necessary. With all that out of the way, let's get started. So I'm playing with basically the same rules as my last challenge run with Ratchet & Clank 3's Plasma Whip, and I'm starting from the beginning of the game, so many of you may expect I'm going to be playing Pacifist again until we get the Suck Cannon. Which was the initial plan. Unlike the Plasma Whip, the Suck Cannon is just lying around, so we just need to find it and pick it up. However, unlike Planet Florana, Planet Eudora is not the second level of the game, so we'd have to spend a bit more time unable to attack. Funnily enough, this isn't actually a problem, until we do get to the second level of the game and it blows up in our face. Everything about Velden Novalis can just be run through, but the end of Novalis is where we hit a bit of a hiccup. As it turns out, triggering the cutscene to get both our new ship and passage to Kerwan are blocked by these three enemies. Try as you might to get them to take each other out, but unfortunately it can't be done, so we need a few other options to get this run off the ground. Commenters on my previous video suggested the use of debug codes to get the Plasma Whip instead of having to jump through as many hoops as I did, but it wasn't available to me as I was playing on a PS2, and the debug codes were only implemented back in for the PS3 version. For some reason. However, debug codes for Ratchet & Clank 1 have always been available no matter which version you're playing. So I can just spawn myself a Suck Cannon no problem and use the nearby peck bots to take these guys out. Which I'm not gonna do. Part of the fun of the last challenge was figuring out how to make it work without having to resort to cheats or debug codes, and I want to stick to that. Also, using the codes for weapons kind of invites using them to skip straight to Final Velden, so best to remove the option before I get too tempted. All this to say, we need another way. Which thankfully, I thought of months ago. Recently on this channel I completed a full Let's Play of Ratchet & Clank, in which I set up a file so that I can begin playing in challenge mode with access to any weapon and with only the base amount of health. Enemies in challenge mode aren't much tougher than in a fresh playthrough, making this as close as to a new game as possible while still having access to the Suck Cannon. With all of that now out of the way, we can finally move on. It's in Kerwan that we first encounter one of the biggest problems that will persist throughout the entire run. A lack of enemies that can be sucked up, as the only enemies you'd think would be, these Robomutts, are completely unaffected. This means we'll have to go through Kerwan without attacking anything, which, one, is pretty easy, and two, was kind of the original plan anyway. Thankfully, the next few planets have plenty of ammo for us, as well as parts with no combat at all. And then the Blarg Station. The Clank section outside plays pretty much as normal, although for a little while I did try and see if I could get through without attacking. Not entirely sure why I thought that was a good idea, especially since the results were... yeah, let's not talk about it. The warship path is also nothing new, although the three alien snappers guarding the great big red threatening button that must never ever be pushed under any circumstances introduced to us a concept that we're really gonna have to get used to. Constantly backtracking for more ammo because the Suck Cannon can only hold 5 shots at a time. And I have to get used to it quickly because it's about to be put into immediate effect. Make sure you suck up a few enemies on the way out, as another concept you'll have to get used to is having as much ammo on you as possible at basically all times, because you never know when you're going to need it. Like to take out the very first force field on the path to the rest of the station. Seriously, if you come back from the warship empty-handed, you're screwed. Isn't this run a great idea? For the most part, this path is also as straightforward as usual. Something to consider is that when going through these corridors that spit a whole swarm of swarmers at you, ignore them unless you're empty. Having plenty of places to backtrack to for extra ammo never hurts. At the room before the boss, take your time taking out the enemies and lowering the force fields. Between the large room before it and the corridor leading into that, there's plenty of ammo to take everything out and even enter the boss fight with a full tank. The Alien Queen is only scary if you're a bad shot. Her only attack is to lunge forward and bite at you if she skitters close enough, so keep your distance and line up your shots. It only takes 4 shots to eat through a third of her health bar, at which point she summons in a whole bunch of swarmers for you to use against her, so take your time, as you're only allowed to miss once with a full tank. After this though, the fight's yours. There are more than enough swarmers to take out the rest of her health, and so long as you don't let yourself get overrun, you're golden. This is a fight I was actually really worried about in theory, but in practice, I was both surprised and absolutely ecstatic over how easy it was. Now, we can move on to Rilgar. The first thing Rilgar is going to do is force us to face a particularly annoying aspect of the suck cannon, in which anything that happens to be inside it apparently can't withstand intergalactic space travel. Stock up on swarmers at the Blarg station before shipping out? Too bad. They're gone now. The only mandatory path is through the sewers, where we'll spend half our time reliving memories of the water temple, and the other half reliving childhood trauma. Yeah, now I think about it, it's kind of the same thing. This would all go off without a hitch, but there is an obstacle that stands in our way. 3 of them, to be exact, taking the form of these gratings blocking the pipes. Which of course means that since ammo doesn't carry over between planets, we have to progress down the other path to stock up. I ended up going down the entire path because I wasn't sure if I needed the prize from the hoverboard race and wanted to open up the gate at the end just to be sure, but you don't. So instead of wasting your time like yours truly, I recommend just going far enough to pick up at least 3 shots, then head on back. Play with water, drown once or twice just to really hammer in the experience, and move on to the next planet. ZDR! Because I don't wanna! Fine. Umbris. Umbris, Umbris, Umbris. Where do I begin? This level consists of only a single path, but it is a long and winding path, heavily decorated with some of the most lethal and most annoying obstacles in the entire run. These turrets that spew a whole salvo of bombs in your general direction, the spray and range of which is random as heck with a way too short cooldown, and these homing mines, the detection ranges of which are really weird and wildly inconsistent, that, when they detect you, will follow you to the actual ends of the earth. There is no checkpoint to know the end of the level, and this is the best part. There is not a single enemy on this entire planet that can be sucked up. So we're in for a pretty good time. Alright, let's go through this step by step. Trial number 1. These 2 turrets at the beginning. With some careful timing and well-aimed long jumping, you can get past the first turret scot-free and jump through the support to the bridge to just miss any damage from the second, if you're lucky. Or you can avoid them completely. Swing shot over to the second Versa target, but don't glide down the intended direction. Instead, stop here for a moment and start swinging left and right. Once you reach your peak, launch yourself off to the right and glide down to the stretch of land below, completely bypassing the turrets. Trial number 2. This mine. This thing has a really wide detection range, so you'll want to head over to the very edge and carefully move along it. And I do mean carefully. One misstep a little too far to the left will mean this thing picking up on you. Trial number 3. These next 2 mines. These, as far as I'm aware, can't be avoided. I've tried sneaking around them every which way, but had no luck. So right now, the only thing we can do is just run straight in. Take the hit from one and use your invincibility frames to take out the other and sustain no extra damage. If you want to get detected by the previous mine, you can take it out in the same way, just by leading it up to the other 2. Trial number 4. Past this machine gun turret and up these stairs gone around a bend is a cheekily placed mine. Is cheekily a word? Doesn't matter, it is now. Run up just far enough for it to detect you, double back, and then lure it into either these crates or the turret. And so at this point I should mention that crates don't respawn upon death, so maybe get used to using the turret to save from constant reloading. Trial number 5. Everything you see before you. We have a trail of mines moving down the middle and around the side of this bridge, in which there is a sizable gap in the trail, but the mines are moving towards you, so this is going to be a little trickier to time than it looks. Past that, a small piece of land with 2 more annoyingly placed bomb turrets leading up to the next set of stairs, again going around a bend. Getting through this little gauntlet is a 4-step process. First, line yourself up so you have a straight shot to the next set of stairs. Second, pray to any god that will listen. Third, as the last couple of mines begin to curve back around, start long jumping and do not stop. And lastly, hope that you make it to the other side without taking any more than 1 hit. If you didn't, pray harder next time. This can all come down to luck. Trial number 6. More cheekily placed mines at the top of these stairs. These ones are a bit of a sucker punch, and it's almost certain that you'll get hits, hence why I want you to take no more than one hit in the previous trial, so you at least have 2 hits to spare. I'm convinced I can lure them into these crates and maybe get away unscathed, but I never had any luck. So far, all I've been able to do is take them out the same way we did the other pair of mines near the beginning. Trial number 7, another trail of mines weaving in and out of the next bridge in a large circle. At first glance, the margin for error here seems way smaller than with the last trial, so how do we clear this one? Well, as it turns out, it's actually super easy, barely an inconvenience. When the gap comes around, just stroll on in and stand in the middle, and the mines will accept you as one of their own. Apparently, the detection range toward the point they're circling around is either incredibly small or non-existent, so you could just chill there until you're ready to move on. Trial number 8. Can we not? We have 4 bomb turrets that, once again, we can't do anything about, crammed into a very confined space, guarding 3 pads we need to stand on to open the next door. It's okay. It's okay. It's fine. All we gotta do is just line ourselves up with the pads, time our movements in between bomb volleys, long jump in, long jump out, and give up, because this isn't happening. There are far too many bombs being thrown around all at once, all very unpredictably, I might add, and if it's something that's possible, it will take an insane amount of luck and patience. Neither of which I have in spades. Luckily for me though, I watch a lot of speedruns. So now, I'm going to throw trials 5 through 8 out the window and skip right past them instead. Typically in a speedrun of this game, the runner will skip past, well, everything on this planet. From the ship, right to the final room, using a trick known as infinite long jumping. I'm going to use that on a much smaller scale to cross this gap right next to trial number 4. We can begin an infinite long jump by running at an edge and then inputting a long jump the moment we step off. Then, we immediately start rapidly alternating between tapping R1 and R2 while also mashing left or right on the D-pad. I tried to time it so that I'd hit left at the same time I hit R1. It's simple to understand, but a little tricky to get down. But with a gap only this small to contend with, all it takes is a little bit of practice and you'll nail it in no time. For a little more of a detailed explanation, click the link in the description or the card on screen to check out the movement tutorial for Ratchet & Clank 1 speedrunning by the Rixer. It's a much better resource of learning this stuff than it is from me. This won't always be an option though, as it can only be performed over certain surfaces, like the mud here on Umbrus or the water on Rilgar. These games are incredibly well programmed. From here, the only real trial lies after the next trio of pads, where 2 circling trials of mines guard even more pads. The same logic applies here as the other circling trial that we're now skipping. Just stand in the center and they won't touch you, giving you ample opportunity to hit the 3 pads and head up the ladder to the long-awaited checkpoint. And now it's time to make everything we've just done absolutely meaningless. The Sharkigator pools up here are the final obstacle before the boss, and an incredibly simple one. Typically, you just need to drain the pools, kill the Sharkigators, fill them back up, and swim on through. The thing about the Sharkigators is that when freely swimming in a body of water such as this, they are incredibly deadly hazards. As soon as you enter the water, or even glide out above it, they will lock onto your position, swimming way faster than you can, and help themselves to a little snack. This kills you instantly, no matter how much health you have, so getting rid of them is essential. And you remember what I said earlier?
There is not a single enemy on this entire planet that can be sucked up.
The first pool is no issue. We can drain it and just walk past these things, no problem. It's when we reach the next pool that we do have a problem. I spent a lot of time trying to find ways across, even testing as many tricks as I could think of that don't use items or menus I can only access because I'm in challenge mode. I set this up to be as close to a fresh file as possible, and I'm sticking with it. The closest I got was keeping the pool drained and somehow using the Sharkigators to help me high jump up to the other side. Which didn't get me very far, as the next pool had to be drained and the hydro displacer was still full. Try as I might, there was nothing I could do, nothing I could think of to get past this. And so, it was here that the Suck Cannon Only run met with failure. Progressing meant having to bust out the wrench to deal with all the Sharkigators so I can move on. But let's say I did find a way past them without resorting to anything but the Suck Cannon. It still wouldn't have mattered, as I'd still have to contend with the biggest reason why I knew that the run would end here on Umbrus. The boss fight. As I've already said, nothing on Umbrus can be sucked up, and the fight with the Blargian Snagglebeast doesn't plan on changing that. Sticking with the rules, we have nothing to fight back with. I was always going to have to drop the suck cannon and at least use the wrench. As I said earlier, speedruns see you skipping basically the entire planet, so it is technically possible to finish Umbris suck cannon only, but I'm not at that level yet. For all intents and purposes, it is Planet Umbris where this run meets its end. But we still got plenty of game left, so let's see how far we can go with the same rules. Infuriatingly, things get pretty simple again, well, immediately. Battalia will test you on how to use a limited amount of ammo wisely along this main path, but is ultimately not too difficult. Gas bar can be skipped pretty much entirely if we whip our old friend Weird Collision Detection into shape, but I wanted to see how hard it would be to play through the rest of the planet normally, only using the turrets to hit the doors. The answer is, it's not. You can just keep these spawners alive and you essentially have infinite ammo. Just when the game starts to let up a bit though, then it throws the second visit to Orkson in our face. We are once again faced with a path containing nothing for us to suck up. No, not even these darters and screamers, which are clearly small enough. While there are plenty of the little swarmers bouncing around the planet, the areas where they are can't be accessed until after we grab the next infobot. Until we do, it's Umbris all over again. Except this is way more possible. For the first couple of electric barriers, we'll need to lure the toxic crabs over to destroy the power cells for us and get away before their stupid quick attacks with stupid long reach cheap shot you to death because they're stupid. You think they can tell that I really hate these things? When you reach the Magna Strip, if you walk off to the left right after you turn completely upside down, you can glide down to where it ends without having to worry about the darters. The electric barrier around the next bend is a bit trickier, as one of the power cells is out of range of the toxic crabs. Luckily for us, Weird Collision Detection is primed and ready to help us out. Sneak past the first few crabs and hide behind this power cell when the screamer tries to wake them up. It's the perfect camouflage. Then head over to this rock past the last crab in this little area. High jump up on top of it and mash X while holding R1 to try and perform another high jump off the top of the rock. If you're successful, weave yourself around and then on top of this tree as it's completely solid. Perform one more high jump off the top of the tree and soar right on over the barrier to the end of the path. I don't do this until later, but now the areas previously explored with Clank are open once again, we can load up on a few swarmers and tackle the other part to get the nanotech upgrades, which we are really gonna want later. The next potential hiccup comes from none other than the Gemlik base, of which my methods for completing may or may not sound rather reminiscent of another somewhat similar video you've probably already seen. You know the one. The main obstacle here are these barriers that can only be disabled by destroying these towers. The first one isn't an issue. The next one, however, is. Weird Collision Detection is really going to outdo themselves today, as not only can we just skip past this barrier, we can also skip past all of them in one fell swoop. The exact positioning is a little finicky, but you can use this part of the wall that's just sticking out to perform a high jump and reach one of the columns forming the barrier. High jump again off of that over to this building, again up this arch, and over these arches to this rooftop that hasn't loaded in yet. And congrats! Once you're through this gap in the fence, it's just a short stroll to the end of the level. Finding Quark legitimately is technically allowed within my rules, but do feel free to just mid-air long jump right over this gap to skip it entirely. Do make sure to run around a bit to set up the checkpoint and then partake in a little skydiving to earn an easy ticket out of here. I feel like I was supposed to be doing something else. Oh well. For the love of... Our next pain in the everything comes in the form of Kalebo 3. There are some chompers scattered here and there for ammo, but very few are actually going to be of any use. The biggest problem we have on this planet is the test dummies. You face 4 mandatory gauntlets of these things throughout the level. They can't be sucked up, and in the case of the first 3, there's no way to exit the rooms you're finding them in until they're all destroyed, meaning no restocking on ammo mid-fight. Not that there was enough to begin with. Fortunately, there is a direct route we can take straight to the end of the level, which also may or may not sound rather reminiscent of another somewhat similar video you've probably already seen. You know the one. Before that, we need to find our way past this first barrier and into the small hub. It can be taken down by hitting this switch, but there's no ammo for us on the path here, and I couldn't get enemy projectiles to work, if they even work at all. Fortunately, there's a checkpoint inside, and it's really lenient. Start gliding around the side of the hub, and you'll have triggered said checkpoint by the time you go for some more skydiving. Next, fill up on the chompers at the beginning of the main path, and then head up the elevator to the grind boot course. Face back where we came from, high jump from the edge, and follow the wall to this window. You can perform another high jump from around the windowsill, where we want to land up on this dark strip on the rooftop. You'll want to be careful up here, as almost every surface other than this strip will slide you right off. Follow it up and all the way to the left, and then high jump over to the right, down onto another rooftop that hasn't fully loaded in yet. Follow it to the end, making sure to jump regularly, as some spots are slippery, and with it being see-through, it's hard to tell where these spots are. Jump on down and we find ourselves before the final gauntlet of test dummies. And unfortunately, the final door won't open until we destroy them all. This is where the real annoying part starts. Dash on over to this back corner while the test dummies start spawning, and then... wait. Just wait. We're waiting because our ticket through this next ordeal will be none other than friendly fire. Many of these dummies will end up destroying each other while they somehow have no idea where we are. So the first step is to wait until they thin out their own ranks. Each dummy will spawn twice, and their movements aren't always well synchronized, so this may take a little while. Ideally, the only dummies you'll want left standing are these 3 Walloper dummies in the middle, one of the Pyrocida dummy next to the door, these 2 Pyrocida dummies down the side, and one of the Bomb Glove dummies over on the other side, or even both of them as long as they've taken each other out at least once. From here, it's time to put the Bomb Glove dummies to work. Of these remaining dummies, we're going to lure them into throwing their bombs into the path of the Pyrocida dummy next to us and the 2 centermost Walloper dummies. They've got some mean throwing arms, and can land a bomb almost anywhere inside the space outside of that corner we were hiding in, making them perfect to begin clearing house without us having to use too much ammo. Simply time your movement so that their bombs will land a little before the dummies reach the position you want, so they're in a prime spot to be blown up. Each dummy takes 2 bombs each, and some will still have backup to come, so we'll still have to be patient as well as careful with our movements so that we don't get blown up instead. The Walloper dummy closest to us only dashes back and forth between 2 positions and isn't well timed with when the bomb dummies throw their bombs, so just take this one out with a suck cannon. They only take 1 shot, but there'll be 2 of them, and we only get 1 more chance at a full tank of ammo, so aim carefully. Next, move on to destroying the remaining Pyrocida dummies. Of the remaining 4, we'll only have enough ammo to destroy 3. Do so, and then prepare for things to get dangerous. Backtrack along the path and pass the Blarg Elite Commandos toward a group of chompers outside the previous building. The Seekers barring your way can make this tricky. Once they spot you, they'll try and stick to you like glue as they prepare to detonate. If you have the health to spare, tanking all their explosions at once is a good move. If you'd prefer to run away and save your health, however, make sure you lead them away from the chompers. Don't ask why I'm telling you to do this. From there, suck up your new ammo and head on back. Through a bunch more enemies that decide to show up late to the party. And they brought the new ride with them, which is probably the most dangerous part. Quickly and carefully make your way back to the test dummies and take out the rest. With their testing finally complete and GLaDOS somehow satisfied, the final door will open, leaving only a hoverboard race between us and being able to finally get off this stupid planet. Core 2 is a bit of an interesting case. The remainder of this planet is primarily a stealth section, so we won't actually have to engage in a whole lot of combat. There is, however, one point where it's mandatory, and you're gonna love where it is. Yep, literally outside the final door. And the only chance we get to stock up on ammo is before the stealth section even starts. There is a checkpoint partway through, but if we end up dying, which is a little more likely than you think, we lose any remaining ammo upon respawn. Now you're probably thinking that this means we'll have to do it all in one go, reloading and starting from the beginning should we fail. This is true, but it's actually not as bad as it sounds. Typically, after you've completed a planet's main objectives, you may find that there are different enemy formations than there were originally when you revisit them. Core 2, for some reason, can begin doing this before your mission here is even complete. Head through the stealth section normally until you reach the first set of ladders. Normally, you take out the sentry bots here so you can climb up safely, but if you sneak over to the ladder and quickly make your way up after this bot turns around, you can safely progress up even with the alarm triggered, as the projectiles can't even reach you. Right after this is the checkpoint, and here you should make a manual save. If you make it all the way to the end with the ammo to take out the final sentry bot, good job! But if not, or you die along the way, load your save right after you respawn. All the enemies leading up to that checkpoint are now completely different. The sentry bots that used to be here have already been replaced by plasma bots and groups of swarmers, letting you get back to the checkpoint really quickly with plenty of ammo along the way. You still have to carry your ammo all the way to the end, but starting from the beginning is no longer as much of a chore as it would have been. Nothing of particular note happens on Drake's fleet, but one interesting thing is that the robo-mutts that we previously couldn't suck up on Metropolis can now be sucked up. I both really want to call foul and am way too tired to ask any more questions. Our final challenge lies back on the planet where it all started, Veldin. The long winding path to the end is littered with more than enough horny toads to keep you well stocked, and that's horny toads because they got horns, not because they're a, you know. I mean they could be. I mean, no real way for us to know, but yeah. But why fight when you could just run away? Inspiring generations of galactic rangers to come. Picking up the Ultra Nanotech will be of major help here, and the sooner you can get to an Invinto lock, the better, as using the Trespasser will momentarily cause your enemies to completely forget you exist. only momentarily though. Move quickly and keep on your toes to avoid as much damage as possible on the road to reach our final source of frustration. Drek is a 4-phase fight against an absolute damage sponge of a giant mech. So of course, for the first phase, we throw our very own giant mech into the ring for a grueling, brutal, no-holds-barred slobber. Oh man. Second phase onward is Ratchet on foot, and get ready for a long fight. Over the next 3 phases, Drek will pull out 6 different attacks. Shockwave bombs, missile volleys, homing mines, his own evil Gadgebots, a large electrical ball that he'll fire at us from outside the arena, and this nonsense. 2 of these attacks can be used against him, as the suck cannon is able to suck up both the bots and, for once, the mines. There's just one tiny little problem. Drek uses neither of these attacks during the second phase. During this phase, Drek will only use the bombs and missiles, and it won't be until the third phase that he at least adds the mines. There are some turrets to suck up before you slingshot over, but it's not nearly enough. I even experimented with the idea of only stepping on certain platforms on the way over so I could potentially swing back and pick up more ammo. But this, however, was completely unfeasible, as the gaps between burst targets are too large to swing between without these platforms, and there just aren't enough to support 3 trips. Even if it were possible, it wouldn't make any difference. I came back later to test with the Golden Suck Cannon, sucking up every toad on the path to the first arena and filling it right up, but in action, it still wasn't enough. And so it's here, right at the end of the game, where we're hit with our second failure. Drek Phase 2 is going to need to be fought with at least the wrench, which is enough of a pain in its own right, but luckily won't last too long. Once we hit Phase 3, the Suck Cannon can make its return. Like with going wrench only, the prime moment to hit Drek is while he's launching his bombs. Not only are they slow and easy to avoid, he also doesn't move as much, and he clears out the arena of all other obstacles. You can of course try and land as many hits as possible whenever you feel like you can get away with it, but if you want to play smart and safe, only fire during the bombs and use the rest of your time avoiding everything else. This is a long enough fight as it is. You really don't want to take too many hits and have to start the fight over. This goes triple during the 4th and final phase, where he starts bringing out the rest of his arsenal. Be patient, stay well stocked, and keep an eye on your surroundings to slowly but surely bring his health down and blast him with the full force of his own ego. Plus a heaping helping of irony. With that, our run is finally over. So, what we have here is a challenge that can barely even start on a fresh file without debug codes, with a planet that can't be finished without some serious speedrunning mastery, and a final boss that just straight up can't be defeated with just this weapon. It's unfortunate that such an interesting concept for a run had to meet with failure, and equally as unfortunate that just the act of getting anywhere requires you to jump through so many hoops. The game really likes to play fast and loose on what is considered a small enough enemy to be sucked up, and thanks to that, we get close to, if not entire planets, where the challenge transforms from, can we beat the game with just this weapon, into, can we beat the game with no weapon. And while working with that made for some unique challenges and interesting solutions, the experience ended up being more frustrating than anything. The Plasma Whip run has fair share of major obstacles as well, but at least that run managed to still be fun by the end. This run flipped wildly between being no challenge because of an abundance of small enemies, and being near impossible, actually impossible, or an infuriating slog because of a lack of enemies. So as you might guess, this one isn't too high on the old recommendation list. Unless you want to try and succeed where I failed and conquer both Umbrus and Drek. If anyone can pull that off, do let me know. I'm dying to see if it can actually be done. I alluded to their videos a couple of times here, so once again, I gotta give a shout out to GameTrain 3000, as their wrench only run definitely helped me out more than a couple of times, particularly on Gambler King Kalibo. And I'm gonna throw another shout out to the Rixer again for his tutorial videos on the movement tech used in Ratchet & Clank speedrunning. Needless to say, I'm gonna have a lot of fun with infinite long jumping in the future. If you're interested in seeing the run in action, click the card on screen or the link in the description. What did you guys think of the video, and what other challenges would you like to see me do? I know it's been a while since the last one, but I really want to start putting more of a focus on these. Let's Plays are still going to be my big thing, but hey, nothing wrong with variety. Let me know down in the comments, and as always, thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, my name is Mano Omega, and I'll see you guys later.